The boy's voice trembled as he clutched the Alpha King's cloak, looking up through tear-blurred lashes. Please, please save my mother. You're the only one who can. In that single moment, a kingdom shifted, and a king who trusted no one felt something break open in his chest. Rain hammered the stone balcony like it despised the castle as much as he did. Alpha King Aiden Thorne stood with his palms braced on the railing, jaw tight, watching the storm swallow the horizon of the Blackridge kingdom. His people whispered that he was heartless. Some said he was cursed. Others swore he'd lost the ability to feel anything at all. They were wrong. He felt too much. That was the problem. Your Majesty, Commander Hale said from behind him, the council awaits your decree. I know what they want, Aiden muttered. They want a king who rules with fear. A king who never hesitates. Which you already do. Aiden gave a humorless scoff. If only they knew. He straightened, smoothing his cloak, but his eyes remained on the storm. Something tugged at him, a strange, sharp intuition that today would break the monotony of his cold reign. A shift in the air, a pull in his chest, almost a warning, or maybe a beginning. Before he turned to leave, he murmured a thought he couldn't explain. Someone's coming. Far from the castle, in a crumbling cottage on the kingdom's outer ridge, Ellen wiped sweat from his mother's forehead. Her breaths came shallow, spaced too long apart, each one sounding like a goodbye she didn't want to say. Mama, don't go to sleep, he whispered, shaking her gently. Please. Her eyes fluttered open, gray, soft, fading. Ellen, sweetheart, you need to go. I'm not leaving you. You must. Her fingers curled weakly around his. The king, he has the power. More than anyone. You have to reach him before the fever takes me. But the king doesn't see commoners, Ellen whispered, voice breaking. He won't even let me near the gates. Try. She managed a faint smile. For me, a longer pause. Too long. A silence that felt like a cliff edge. Mama? He leaned closer. Mama! Her chest barely rose. Fear surged like ice through his small body. He wiped his tears with shaky hands, kissed her forehead, and ran, barefoot, desperate, determined, into the storm. Ellen reached the gates by nightfall. The storm had calmed, but the world felt hollow, holding its breath. 2 guards blocked his way. No entry. My mama's dying, he cried. Please, the king can save her. One guard stiffened, but the other scowled. The king doesn't meet children, especially not... Aiden's voice cut through the air like a blade. Let him through. Both guards bowed instantly. Aiden approached slowly, his cloak sweeping across the wet stone. He expected the boy to shrink away from him. Everyone did. Instead, Ellen ran straight to him and grabbed his cloak with both fists. Please, Your Majesty, he sobbed. She's all I have. If you don't help, she'll die. Aiden stared down at the trembling child. Something inside him cracked, small but loud enough to echo through all the empty places in his heart. Take me to her, Aiden said softly. Ellen blinked. You will? Yes. The word left him before he even decided it. Maybe it wasn't a decision. Maybe it was destiny. Ellen led the Alpha King down the winding, mud-soaked path, his small legs stumbling from exhaustion but never stopping. Aiden stayed close behind, matching the boy's pace rather than rushing ahead. Strange. Any other situation, he would have demanded speed, efficiency, structure. But tonight, he followed the boy's trembling footsteps without a word of impatience. Slow down, Aiden said, noticing Ellen's breath hitching. You'll collapse before we reach her. I can't slow down, Ellen cried, voice rasping. What if she's not? What if she's... His throat closed around the word. Your mother is waiting for you. Have faith in that. Ellen swallowed hard and nodded, pushing forward. The storm had left the world in ruins. Fallen branches littered the path. The scent of wet earth and lightning lingered in the air. Each gust of wind carried a cold bite, but the boy never flinched, never complained. Aiden's cloak settled over Ellen's small shoulders before the boy even noticed. He looked up, startled. "Your Majesty, you'll get cold." "I've survived worse," Aidan said simply. Ellen's lips trembled, but for the first time, there was a flicker of hope. When they reached the cottage, Aidan halted at the threshold, staring at the frail structure with a tightening in his chest. A house on the brink of collapse. A woman on the brink of death. A boy clinging to both. Ellen rushed inside. "Mama, I brought him. I brought the king." No response. Aidan entered quietly, his senses instantly taking in everything. The cold hearth, the scent of herbs, sickness, desperation. A woman lying limp on the bed, breath shallow and uneven. Ellen knelt beside her, wiping her forehead with a cloth long dried out. "Mama, wake up. Please wake up." Aidan approached slowly. She looked young, too young to be fading like this, with tangled dark hair sticking to her damp cheeks. Sickness clung to her like a shadow. "What happened to her?" Aidan asked. Ellen didn't look up. "She got sick 3 days ago. The healer refused to come because we couldn't pay." His voice broke. "I tried to work. I tried to find money. But then she—" He swallowed, shoulders shaking. She kept getting worse. Aidan knelt beside her, placing 2 fingers gently against her wrist. "Weak pulse, fading life. She needs moonroot essence and heated amber leaf." Immediately, Ellen blinked. What does that mean?" "It means," Aidan said, rising to his feet, "that she can be saved." Ellen's whole body froze. "Really? Truly?" Aidan nodded once. "But the medicine must be prepared by my personal healer. She will not survive the night otherwise." Ellen's tears spilled in relief. Then let's take her, please!" Aidan turned to the guards at the door. "Prepare a carriage and bring a stretcher." "Carefully?" "Yes, Your Majesty." As they hurried out, Ellen brushed his mother's hair with trembling fingers. Aidan watched him, this tiny creature fighting the world with nothing but desperation and devotion. He had seen warriors with less courage. "You care for her deeply," Aidan said quietly. Ellen sniffed hard. She's everything. My only family." Aidan's jaw tightened. "I understand." Ellen finally looked at him. Really looked. "Your Majesty, did someone save your mother when she was sick?" Aidan's eyes darkened. "No, no one did." Ellen's breath hitched. "Is that why you're helping mine?" Aidan didn't answer, not because he didn't know, but because the truth lodged in his throat. He wished someone had helped him back then. He wished someone had listened to a desperate child like he was now. Instead, he said only, "No one deserves to lose a mother." Ellen nodded slowly, taking those words into his small, hurting chest. The guards returned with the stretcher, carrying it gently as they transferred Ellen's mother onto it. Ellen hovered beside her, gripping her cold hand. Aidan lifted the boy and set him inside the carriage first. "You'll sit with her," Aidan said. "She'll hear your voice." Ellen nodded fiercely. "She always hears me." When the door closed and the carriage wheels began rolling, Aidan stood beside the window, watching the boy whisper softly, "Mama, the king is helping. You're going to be okay. You just have to stay." Aidan's chest tightened again unexpectedly. Commander Hale approached. "Your Majesty, should we send the council away? You were meant to address them tonight." Aidan didn't take his eyes off the boy inside the carriage. "Let them wait," he said. "The kingdom can survive one night without me." Hale blinked. "And the boy?" Aidan glanced back at him. "The boy cannot." The palace healer's chamber glowed with warm lantern light as the carriage thundered into the courtyard. The moment the doors opened, the world burst into frantic movement. Guards rushing, servants clearing pathways, the healer preparing her instruments. Ellen clung to his mother's hand, refusing to let go even as attendants lifted her from the carriage. Aidan stepped out behind them. But unlike before, he didn't maintain the rigid posture of a king. Something in him was already unraveling. Threads he didn't remember were still attached. The healer, a sharp-eyed woman named Lysandra, hurried over. "Your Majesty, what happened?" She has moon fever, Aiden replied. Severe progression. We need the amberleaf infusion and distilled moon root. Now, Lysandra's eyes widened. That treatment is reserved for royalty, Aiden finished. I know. Prepare it anyway. She hesitated only a second before bowing. At once, they hurried inside. The chamber smelled of burning sage, crushed herbs, warm oils. Aiden slowed his pace as Ellen's mother was laid onto the main treatment bed, its silver railings etched with protection runes. Ellen scrambled to her other side, gripping her limp hand. Mama, we're here. You just have to stay with me, okay? I brought him. I brought the king. His voice cracked on the last word. Aiden stayed a few steps back. Not because he wasn't invested, he was. Too much. But because he didn't trust the way his chest tightened every time he looked at the boy's small, desperate fingers intertwined with his mother's. Lysandra returned with a bowl of shimmering silver-pink liquid that pulsed like it was alive. Ellen froze. Will it hurt her? Yes, Lysandra said softly. But without it, she'll fade. Ellen looked at Aiden immediately. Hope was one thing, but trust. Trust was a sacred leap. Your Majesty, will she survive? Aiden took a slow breath, his first honest one in years. She has a chance, he said, and that is more than she had an hour ago. Ellen's lower lip trembled, but he nodded with fierce determination. Then do it, please. Lysandra began the infusion. The liquid flowed through a thin carved channel in the healer's table, glowing as it seeped into the woman's skin. Her body arched as the potion coursed through her bloodstream, violent, overwhelming. Aelin cried out, "Mama!" and nearly jumped onto the table. Aiden caught him, gently but firmly. Aelin, she needs the medicine to fight the fever. But she's hurting. She's fighting, Aiden corrected softly. Look at her face. She's fighting for you. Ellen swallowed hard and clutched Aiden's sleeve for balance. Lysandra added another tincture, the air filling with the sharp scent of mint and bitter herbs. Sweat formed on the woman's brow. Her breaths went from shallow to erratic to dangerously slow. Aelin panicked. Mama? Mama, please? Please wake up? Aiden's hand landed on the boy's back. She can still hear you, Aiden murmured. Talk to her. I don't know what to say. Tell her something only you would say. Aelin turned back to his mother, voice shaking. Mama, remember when I was scared of the thunder and you said brave boys shake the storm right back? I'm shaking it for you now, so you can't go. You have to stay. You have to stay with me. Aiden stared at them, boy and mother, and something inside him twisted painfully like a scar being pressed again after too many years. He whispered, almost to himself, I wish I'd said something like that. Aelin glanced at him, confused. To who? Aiden's eyes darkened. No one, he said, which of course meant someone. Suddenly the woman's pulse dropped. Lysandra shouted, Your Majesty, her heart is stalling. Aelin screamed, Don't let her die. Aiden moved before his mind even registered the command. He took the healer's place, channeling controlled heat through his palm, a royal alpha ability no one had seen him use publicly in years. His hand glowed faintly where it touched the woman's sternum. Come back, he murmured. Don't you dare leave him. The chamber filled with the hum of energy. Ellen watched with wide, tear-drenched eyes. You're helping her with your own power, he whispered. Why? Why would you do that for us? Aiden's jaw clenched. Because, he said quietly, no child should have to beg for their mother's life. The glow intensified. Then, a gasp, a shudder, a heartbeat finding itself again. Lysandra steadied the woman's breathing. She's stabilizing. Her pulse is rising. Ellen collapsed to his knees in relief, sobbing into his mother's arm. Aiden exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for years. When the worst was over and Lysandra adjusted the final bandages, Aiden stepped back, suddenly aware of the trembling in his own hands. He had not used his healing power in a decade, not since he failed to save someone far too important. But tonight, he didn't fail. Aelin wiped his tears and looked up at him. Your Majesty, thank you. I don't know how to say it right, but thank you. The boy's gratitude struck Aiden far deeper than praise ever had, deeper than fear, deeper than respect. It pierced the armor he didn't remember forging. You don't have to thank me, Aiden said. Just stay by her side. She'll need you when she wakes. Aelin nodded, but then hesitated. Slowly he took Aiden's hand, both of his tiny hands wrapping around the king's fingers. Please don't leave, Aelin whispered. I don't want to be alone. No one had touched him like that in years. No fear, no hesitation, just a child's raw, trembling need. And Aiden, Alpha King of Blackridge, felt something inside him answer. I won't leave, he whispered back. Not tonight. The dawn light was pale, almost ashamed, when Aiden returned to his chambers. He closed the heavy oak door behind him and leaned against it, letting the silence settle around him like dust. He could still see the boy's face in his mind, the wide, desperate eyes, the trembling hands, the way he had clutched Aiden's fingers as if the king were a lifeline. He could still hear the echo of a heartbeat that wasn't entirely his own. I can't, he muttered under his breath. I can't let myself care. But the memory of Ellen's small, fragile hands gripping his had lodged itself deep, refusing to loosen. Aiden's chest tightened involuntarily. He had spent years building walls to keep out the world, to keep himself safe. And yet, there it was, that tiny, unyielding crack. Meanwhile, Elin paced the cramped space of his mother's chamber, brushing back damp hair and checking the weak pulse. She had slept fitfully, and the tension in the boy's shoulders never left. What if he leaves? Ellen whispered to the bed, as though his mother could hear him through the haze of fever. What if the king goes back to his castle and forgets us? Stop it, a guard had said earlier, but Ellen ignored him. He had learned to trust only the man who had risked himself to save her. And yet, the boy's own fears gnawed at him. How could someone like Aiden, so untouchable, so powerful, remain in their lives without consequence? The thought made him bitter. Maybe kings weren't meant to be kind. Maybe they only came when something in return was expected. Aiden returned later that morning, ostensibly to check on the woman's recovery. Ellen had barely moved from the bedside. Your Majesty, the boy said quietly, his voice suspicious now. Why are you here again? You've done enough. I came to make sure she's stable, Aiden replied, deliberately keeping his distance. His gaze scanned the chamber like a general inspecting a battlefield. And to ensure you're not reckless with her care. I'm not reckless, Ellen snapped, finally letting his frustration break. I watch her every hour. I listen. I wait for her to breathe. Aiden did not respond immediately. The old imperious mask returned, cool and distant, and yet you cannot control fate. Ellen's eyes flashed. No, but you came for us. You saved her. You don't understand what that means. Aiden's jaw tightened. I did what had to be done. Do you even know why? The boy's voice wavered between accusation and pain. Do you know what it means to sit and watch someone you love almost die and feel powerless? Aiden looked away. You're young. You'll understand someday that life demands distance. Ellen flinched. Distance? His small fists clenched. I don't want distance. I want you here, with us. Aiden left the room, closing the door softly behind him. Alone, he ran a hand down his face and muttered, I cannot let myself. The truth was ugly, jagged. He wanted to stay. Not out of duty, not out of obligation, but out of something he hadn't allowed himself in decades, connection. Yet he could not admit it, not to himself, not to a child. Vulnerability was weakness, and weakness in a king was dangerous. Meanwhile, Ellen sat beside his mother, rocking her gently as she stirred. Every time she exhaled, his chest hurt less, but every time he looked at the empty doorway where Aiden had disappeared, panic clawed back. He couldn't let the king leave. Not now, not after everything. The kingdom intruded even here, despite the isolation of the ridge. Messengers arrived, bearing urgent requests and reports: fires in the outer villages, bandits in the northern pass, council disputes over Aiden's absence. One message landed in Aiden's hands like a stone: the Alpha King abandons duty. If he continues to prioritize the life of a commoner, he risks rebellion. Aiden's lips pressed into a hard line. He stared at the note, and then out the window at the horizon. Duty. He had lived by it for decades, and yet the image of the boy's desperate face returned, unbidden. Elin, noticing the tension in the air, accused silently, "You're leaving us for them, aren't you?" He couldn't say it wasn't true. The world would not forgive him for caring. The council would not forgive him for prioritizing a peasant child's family, and yet he couldn't walk away. Hours passed. Aiden moved like a ghost through the cottage, checking from a distance, talking with Lysandra about treatment, but never sitting, never lingering. He believed this distance would protect him, and maybe the boy too. Ellen watched every movement, every clipped sentence, every silence, every hesitation. He had tasted hope, and now he was terrified of losing it. "You think I'm fragile," Ellen said quietly one evening. "You think I can't handle it if you leave." Aiden's back stiffened. "I do not think anything about you." "But you do," the boy shouted, eyes wide with betrayal. "You care. Why can't you just say it?" Aiden spun toward him, face hard. "Because it doesn't matter. I am the king. My concern does not grant you anything. You live in a world where I cannot promise you safety." Ellen's hands fell to his lap. His chest heaved. "But you already promised." Aiden turned away, jaw clenched. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. The emotional gulf had opened. Fear, desperation, and stubborn pride collided. Neither side could bridge it, not yet. Late that night, Aiden stood outside in the cold, staring at the ridge where the boy's cottage slept. He could hear Ellen's soft whispers as he spoke to his mother. "I cannot let myself want this," Aiden thought. "I cannot let a boy teach me how to feel again." And yet, a single memory intruded, a memory of someone he had failed long ago. And he shivered, not from cold, from recognition. This child is reminding me of what I abandoned. Ellen, on the other side of the room, whispered to his mother, "He's not like everyone else. He's different. He cares. He really does." Neither spoke of the truth aloud, but both felt it. The emotional spark of Act Two had landed, igniting an unspoken fire neither knew how to handle. Resistance had begun. Pride, fear, and old scars held them back, but the seed of connection had been planted, and it would not die no matter how much they tried. The storm had returned with a vengeance that evening, drumming against the ridge with a relentless fury. Winds tore across the valley, tearing branches from trees and whipping the loose soil into small whirlwinds. The mountain road to the castle was impassable. Aiden Thorne, despite his pride and position, had no choice but to remain at the cottage until the storm passed. The council would have to wait. The villagers could fend for themselves. Duty, as rigid as it had been, bent under circumstances beyond his control. Ellen noticed Aiden's steely silence as they huddled near the hearth. His mother rested fitfully, wrapped in blankets Lysandra had arranged with meticulous care. The fire flickered and threw shadows across the room, but there was warmth. Warmth Aiden couldn't entirely keep from his gaze. Ellen broke the silence first, tugging at the hem of Aiden's cloak. "Your Majesty, you don't have to stay here just because of the storm. You can go back. You have your kingdom to run." Aiden's eyes, usually sharp and unyielding, softened slightly. "And leave you alone with a dying woman?" His voice was low, almost reluctant, carrying a weight he couldn't fully name. "I think not." Ellen hesitated. I guess it's okay, but don't let it get awkward." Aiden raised an eyebrow. "Awkward?" Ellen shifted, kicking at the floor. "Yeah, sitting here, watching you. I mean, you're the king. You're supposed to be busy and untouchable, not sitting by a fire like some normal person." Aiden couldn't help the small smirk that tugged at his lips. He turned away before the boy could see. Normal. He hadn't been normal, or human, in years. And yet here he was, bound by circumstance, confined by storm and obligation, forced into a space where walls meant nothing. The storm raged outside, and the cottage became their entire world. Lysandra needed ingredients for the herbal medicines, which meant trips into the pantry, chopping herbs, brewing decoctions. Aiden's hands, large and steady, took over many of the delicate tasks. Ellen hovered, insisting on helping. "You can't chop that leaf like that," the boy scolded, his small fingers gesturing wildly. "It's too thick." Aiden's eyebrows twitched. "Do you want me to do it for you, then?" Ellen's chest puffed out. "I can do it. Watch." Minutes passed in awkward collaboration, Aiden teaching patience, precision, and control, Ellen insisting on independence and stubbornly failing at first, only to succeed under the king's watchful gaze. Something unspoken passed between them in the quiet moments. Respect, reliance, curiosity. The storm outside hammered the roof and rattled the windows, but within, a fragile trust was beginning to form. Later, Aiden stood near the window, gazing at the sheets of rain. Ellen approached cautiously. "Your Majesty, do you ever get scared?" the boy asked, voice barely audible. Aiden didn't respond immediately. Fear was a luxury he had abandoned long ago. But something about the storm, about the helplessness of the child clinging to his mother, made him pause. "I do," he admitted finally, almost a whisper. "I just hide it better than most." Ellen's eyes widened. You do?" Aiden glanced at him. "Yes. Even kings are not immune." Aiden's chest tightened uncomfortably, and he nodded slightly. "It is." The boy's relief was palpable. For the first time, the distance between them shrank, not just physically, but emotionally. They were not simply king and subject anymore. They were two souls tethered by circumstance, forced to be close, and yet learning to trust in that closeness. The night deepened. The wind howled, but inside the cottage, the fire crackled steadily. Ellen's mother slept more soundly now, the herbs and careful attention keeping her steady. Ellen glanced at Aiden. "Your Majesty, can I ask something?" "Of course," Aiden said. "Why did you come for me? I mean, I begged you, and you could have said no. You could have turned away. You didn't." Aiden's gaze fell to the floor, shadowed by firelight. "Because no one should watch someone they love fade away helplessly. And because," his voice faltered, "because someone once saved me, and I remember what that meant." Ellen tilted his head. "Someone saved you?" Aiden swallowed hard. "A long time ago. Someone I lost because I didn't act fast enough. I promised myself I would never fail another life like that again." Ellen's hands curled into fists. "Then, maybe it's good you're here now. Maybe it's right you didn't leave." Aiden's eyes met the boy's, and for a fleeting moment, the storm outside was irrelevant. Time slowed. Words were unnecessary. Two hearts, one broken by past regret, the other by fear of loss, acknowledged a fragile, mutual understanding. Hours later, the storm began to abate. The boy and the king shared quiet moments of silence, preparing herbs, adjusting blankets, monitoring his mother. Neither spoke of the bond forming between them, but every glance, every hesitation, every shared breath carried weight. Elin realized he was no longer afraid to look at the king. Aiden realized he could no longer pretend he was indifferent to the boy. Forced proximity had done what neither distance nor pride could. It forced honesty, however silent, into the heart of their connection. The morning sun filtered weakly through the cottage windows, casting pale light across the room. Ellen's mother stirred lightly, mumbling incoherent words, and the boy sat at her side, brushing a lock of damp hair from her forehead. Aiden stood near the doorway, silently observing, feeling the subtle tension that only comes when someone's life hangs by threads of fragility. The storm had passed, but its echoes remained, not in the wind, but in their hearts. Forced proximity had broken barriers, but the bond still teetered on the edge between trust and fear. Ellen's curiosity led him to the corner of the room, where a small chest rested under a table. He tugged it open and found faded letters and a leather-bound journal. The handwriting was unfamiliar. Hesitating, he flipped a page. "Your Majesty," he called to Aidan, voice trembling. "Do you know who this belonged to?" Aidan approached, frowning at the papers. "What have you found?" Ellen handed over the journal. Aidan's eyes darkened as he skimmed the faded entries. The handwriting belonged to his mother, a woman he had loved and lost decades ago. The journal recounted her fears, her hopes, and the helplessness of watching her children struggle without protection. Aidan swallowed hard. "I had forgotten some of this," he admitted quietly. "Or perhaps I tried to forget." The memory hit him with a sudden, uncontrollable force. He was 10, standing outside a crumbling barn as his younger sister's cries pierced the night. Firelight danced across the walls. His mother had been too weak to intervene, too frail to stop the flames, and he had been too cowardly, frozen by fear. He had promised himself he would never feel that helpless again, that no one under his protection would ever have to watch him fail them. Yet every child he failed afterward, every life he could not save, haunted him. And now, Aidan realized, this boy, he is the living reminder of my failure and my chance at redemption. Ellen's mother stirred, whispering, "Ellen, my brave boy." Her hand brushed his cheek weakly. "You've done more than you know." Tears welled in the boy's eyes. "Mama, I was so scared. I thought I'd lose you." Aidan knelt beside him, placing a firm hand on Ellen's shoulder. "You fought," he said. "You did what I never could as a boy. You held on when fear tried to pull you under." Ellen looked at him, shocked. You understand?" Aidan's gaze softened, shadowed by memories. "I understand better than anyone," he admitted. Later, as Ellen helped his mother sip the amberleaf mixture, Aidan spoke quietly, for the first time letting his voice betray vulnerability. "When I was your age," he began, "I lost someone I loved, and I couldn't save her." His hand clenched into a fist at his side. "I promised myself I'd never be powerless again. I thought I could keep that promise by being cold, distant, untouchable, but—" He glanced at Ellen, and his eyes softened. "Sometimes no amount of power can protect the ones you care about." Ellen's small hand found Aidan's, squeezing gently. "Then maybe you needed me to remind you it's okay to care." Aidan's chest tightened. No one had ever said that to him, not like this. Ellen hesitated before speaking, as if measuring whether Aidan could bear the truth. "Your Majesty, there's something I've never told anyone." His voice was barely audible. "Before the fever, before she got sick, I overheard villagers saying my mother's illness was a punishment, that it's because of me, that I wasn't brave enough, strong enough." Aidan froze. "Elin, I know it's not true," the boy said quickly, tears streaming. "I know it's not, but I felt like I deserved it. I felt hopeless." Aidan bent down, locking eyes with him. "You could never deserve that," he said firmly. "Never. You fought harder than anyone I've ever known. Bravery isn't measured by never being afraid. It's measured by standing up anyway. And you, Elin, have proven that more times than I can count." The boy's shoulders sagged, as if a burden he had carried for years finally lifted, even slightly. The two of them sat in silence for several minutes, the only sound the gentle breathing of Ellen's mother as she rested. Words were unnecessary now. Their shared vulnerabilities, the king's decades of hidden pain, the boy's guilt and fear, formed a bridge. Forced proximity had brought them together, but this unveiling of past wounds cemented fragile, unspoken bond. They were no longer merely bound by circumstance. They were bound by mutual understanding, empathy, and the shared experience of surviving fear, loss, and near tragedy. But the peace was tenuous. The journal hinted at secrets from Aidan's past, decisions made in the throne room, alliances broken, enemies created, that could ripple into the boy's life. Ellen's eyes lingered on the pages. "Your Majesty, do you think someone might come for her, or me?" Aidan's gaze darkened. "There are always threats," he admitted. "But tonight, We focus on survival, on healing. Everything else can wait. Yet, deep inside, both knew that the external world, the kingdom, enemies, the expectations of the court, would not leave this boy and this king untested. The sun rose higher, casting golden streams through the cottage windows, painting dust motes like drifting sparks of hope. The storm had passed entirely, leaving the air crisp and still, a quiet that felt almost sacred. Ellen sat at his mother's bedside, brushing a soft comb through her hair as she slept peacefully for the first time in days. The boy hummed a tune she used to sing, a fragile little song that had somehow survived the fever and the fear. Aidan stood nearby, arms crossed, pretending to inspect the room, but his attention was fully on the boy. There was something fragile and human in the child's laughter that stirred something long buried in the king. "You missed a spot," Aidan said quietly, nodding toward the back of the mother's hair. Ellen glanced at him, cheeks flushed. "I didn't. I just didn't get there yet." Aidan smirked faintly. "Careful, or I'll have to supervise you." Ellen's lips twitched into a smile. Humor was a small luxury these days, but it was enough. Enough to break the tension, if only briefly. For the first time since meeting, Aidan felt almost normal, almost human. They shared a small laugh, a momentary reprieve from the weight of sickness, fear, and responsibility. Later, as Ellen helped his mother sip her herbal concoction, Aidan took a seat nearby. He had removed his cloak and loosened the heavy folds of his garments, revealing the exhaustion behind the stoic Alpha exterior. "You don't have to pretend with me," Ellen said softly, noticing the shadowed rings beneath Aidan's eyes. "You don't always have to be strong." Aidan froze. No one had ever said that to him. Not a child, not anyone. I suppose not," he admitted finally, voice low. "But it's not easy. To be anything else." Ellen nodded, understanding the unspoken weight. "I know what it's like to be scared and alone. But it helps to let someone in. Even a little—" Aidan swallowed. That little was precisely what he had resisted for decades. Yet here it was, offered freely by a boy who had just fought for his mother's life. The day passed slowly. The mother rested, her strength gradually returning. Ellen and Aidan shared small tasks, preparing herbal treatments, washing clothes, sweeping the cottage floor. "Careful with that bowl," Ellen teased, glancing at Aidan as he poured water. "It's not a chalice from the castle." Aidan raised an eyebrow, stifling a laugh. "And yet I handle it with royal precision," the boy giggled. "Royal or not, you almost spilled it on her blankets." Aidan's shoulders relaxed for the first time in months. Humor, simple and unadorned, threaded through their day, softening walls both had built so rigidly. As evening fell, they gathered near the fire. The mother, finally awake and sipping a mild tea, smiled at them both. "You've done a lot for me," she murmured, her voice still weak but steady. "Both of you. I am grateful," Aidan grinned shyly. "I couldn't have done it without him." He gestured toward Aidan, who gave the faintest nod of acknowledgement. Aidan remained quiet for a moment, studying the boy and his mother. Then he spoke softly. "You both fought hard. Bravery is not always loud. It's measured in persistence, in care, in small acts." Ellen's eyes lit up. "So you see me." "I see you," Aidan said, voice quiet but certain. "All of you." The boy beamed. The mother's smile deepened. A fragile circle of trust, warmth, and emotional connection had formed around the fire. Later, when the mother dozed, Ellen leaned against Aidan, hesitant. "Your Majesty, I'm glad you're here, even if I was scared before. I'm not so scared anymore." Aidan felt a lump rise in his throat. He had never been so glad to hear words so simple, yet they carried the weight of everything he had tried to avoid feeling. "I'm glad I'm here too," he admitted, his voice low, almost vulnerable. I wasn't sure I could be—" Ellen blinked. "Why not?" Aidan hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Because I've spent my life protecting a kingdom, not hearts. And sometimes protecting a heart is the hardest battle of all." Ellen's hand found his. "Then maybe we can fight together." Aidan's lips twitched into a rare, genuine smile. Perhaps we can, for a brief shining moment, everything felt right. They were two hearts finding solace in one another's presence. Trust, laughter, and hope threaded through the room like warm sunlight, but Aidan could feel the pull of the outside world, the responsibilities of the throne, the expectations of his council, and the dangers lurking beyond the ridge. Even as Ellen slept beside his mother that night, Aidan remained alert, a quiet tension simmering beneath the bond they were building. This peace, though real, was fragile. The storm outside had passed, but storms always returned. He glanced at the boy, sleeping softly, and whispered to himself, "We have today, and perhaps that's enough." And in that moment, the first true connection between king and boy, unexpected, fragile, but undeniable, was sealed. The morning light was sharp and cold, slicing through the cottage like a knife. It revealed a world still trembling from yesterday's calm, still stitched together by fragile threads of trust. Aidan had stepped outside to inspect the ridge, tension coiling in his shoulders. Reports had arrived overnight. Bandits had raided a nearby village, claiming livestock and threatening the villagers' safety. The king's absence had emboldened them. He returned to the cottage with news that weighed like stones in his chest. The world was not pausing for healing, for connection, for fragile bonds between a boy and a man hardened by duty. Ellen was helping his mother eat a simple breakfast when Aidan entered. The boy's mother, still weak, smiled faintly at the king. "We need to leave," Aidan said, voice clipped, almost unfeeling. "The bandits will not wait for anyone. You must come with me, now." Ellen froze. "Leave? But she's not fully recovered." "She needs protection," Aidan replied firmly. "And I am the only one who can provide it, now." Ellen's gaze hardened. "So, what about yesterday? About all the time we spent? Was that just nothing to you?" Aidan's jaw tightened. "Don't twist my words, boy. I saved your mother. That was enough." Ellen's hand shook. "Enough? You think saving her is enough? You don't get it. You care, don't you? And now you're leaving as if it didn't matter." Aidan's eyes darkened, sharp with frustration. "I do care. But the world doesn't stop for anyone's feelings. Do you think I have the luxury to linger here?" The boy's voice rose, trembling with betrayal. You said you wouldn't leave me. You promised. I promised her life." Aidan snapped, the tension in his chest finally breaking through the mask of control. "Not to babysit a child's fragile emotions. I cannot, will not, sacrifice my kingdom for sentimentality." Ellen's face crumpled. "So, that's it. All the trust, all the moments, just mean nothing to you?" "I didn't say that," Aidan growled, fists clenched. "But you think like a child, and children see the world only as black and white." Ellen's lower lip quivered. "I guess, maybe I do. But at least I feel. I care. I fight for the people I love, even if I'm scared." Aidan's chest heaved. He wanted to tell the boy he understood. He wanted to explain that care and duty were not opposites, that protecting the kingdom and protecting a child could coexist. But the words lodged in his throat, tangled with pride, fear, and the ghosts of all the lives he had failed before. Elin backed away, tears spilling freely now. "Then, maybe I was wrong to trust you. Maybe I should have known better than to think a king could ever care about someone like me." Aidan's throat tightened. The boy's words cut deeper than any sword, sharper than any insult. He wanted to reach for him, to assure him, but he didn't. He couldn't. "Fine," he said finally, voice cold. "If that is what you believe, then I will leave. I am a king, Ellen. My duty comes first, and if that makes me unworthy of your trust, so be it." Ellen's chest heaved. "Go, leave, go back to your kingdom and forget us." Aidan turned sharply, the corner of his cloak brushing against the floor. He didn't look back. But every step away from the boy and the mother felt like a physical wound slicing through him. "She promised, he promised," he whispered between sobs. "And now it's gone." Aidan, alone on the ridge outside, stared at the horizon. The world stretched infinitely before him, empty and unforgiving. The wind whipped around him, carrying echoes of the boy's betrayal and grief. He clenched his fists, wishing he could undo his words, wishing he could erase the sharpness, the cruelty, the pride that had driven him away. Am I worthy of connection? He asked himself silently. Am I worthy of anyone's trust? Decades of solitude and duty weighed him down, and for the first time in years, he questioned everything he had built. Back inside the cottage, Ellen's mind raced. Part of him hated Aidan for leaving, for prioritizing the kingdom over a promise of trust. Another part understood the impossible weight on the king's shoulders. But if he leaves, if he doesn't care, then why did he stay yesterday? Why did he help Mama? The boy's chest tightened with confusion. Does he ever care at all? Tears streamed down his face as he rocked his mother gently, unsure whether the man he had come to rely on would ever return, not just to protect them physically, but emotionally. The day dragged on, heavy with silence and unresolved tension. Aidan moved through the castle corridors in a daze, the echoes of the boy's accusation haunting him. Pride and regret warred in his chest. The bond that had begun to form, the fragile trust, the small moments of laughter and connection, had shattered in a single storm of harsh words. And Ellen, curled against his mother's still recovering body, felt a hollow ache where hope had lived, wondering if he had ever truly mattered to the man he had come to see as a hero. Yet, even in the depth of despair, both felt the undercurrent of what was possible. The bond had been strong enough to ignite laughter, trust, and shared vulnerability. Even if it was broken now, the memory of what they had shared lingered, like a faint, stubborn ember refusing to die. Ellen's sobs gradually softened into quiet, sorrowful breathing. And Aidan, despite walking away, could not rid himself of the image of the boy's tear-streaked face, small hands trembling, still clinging to his mother. Something had shifted between them. Broken, yes, but also irrevocably real. The storm outside had passed, but a new storm now raged inside each of them, a storm of fear, guilt, and the haunting question of whether connection, once broken, could ever be repaired. Night had fallen, thick and absolute, over the ridge. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and the faint aroma of herbs from the cottage below. Silence had settled like a heavy shroud over both Ellen and Aidan, but it was a silence brimming with tension, regret, and unspoken longing. Inside the cottage, Ellen sat by his mother, watching her sleep with careful attention. Every rise and fall of her chest reminded him of the storm they had survived, and the storm he had weathered within himself. The anger and betrayal that had cut the bond between him and the king. Should I even try, he thought, after what he said, after he left? He clenched his fists, knuckles white in the candlelight. Pride and fear warred within him. Part of him wanted to retreat into the safety of his mother's room and pretend the king had never mattered. Another part, a stubborn, desperate part, urged him forward, toward the truth, toward reconciliation, toward risk. Ellen whispered into the dark, almost as if confessing to the night itself. I want him to stay. I don't care about the world outside. I just need him here. The boy's small chest tightened. But will he come? Will he choose me? Or will I be left again? He remembered the laughter, the warmth, the shared moments that had made him feel alive in ways he had never imagined possible. And the ache of loss, still fresh, gnawed at him. He knew that if he didn't act, the bond might be lost forever. Aidan walked the ridge alone, the weight of his crown heavy on his shoulders, though he had left it behind in the cottage. The moonlight glinted off the metal of his sword, reflecting the turmoil in his heart. He had let pride dictate his actions, allowed duty to overrule connection, and in doing so, he had wounded someone he had come to care for deeply. Was I wrong to leave? he asked himself, though the answer was already clear. Every image of Ellen's tear-streaked face, the boy clutching his mother, haunted him relentlessly. I cannot undo what I said, but I can choose what comes next. Aidan stopped at the edge of the ridge, staring down at the cottage where the boy and his mother lay. The flickering candlelight reminded him of warmth, of laughter, of the fragile bond he had shattered. I can walk away, or I can try to fix it, but it will take everything in me. Inside the cottage, Ellen rose quietly, glancing at his mother's peaceful sleep. He stole a small blanket around his shoulders and moved to the doorway, heart pounding. He wasn't sure whether the king would still care, or whether his arrival would even be welcome, but he knew he had to try. The wind carried the faintest sound of footsteps across the ridge. Ellen froze. Aidan stepped onto the wooden walkway outside, cloak fluttering in the night wind. The king's eyes, dark and unreadable in the shadows, searched for the boy. Aidan paused, then spoke quietly, almost vulnerably. Ellen, I should not have left. The boy's breath caught. You came back? Yes, Aidan said simply, letting the single word carry all the weight of regret, care, and the choice he had made to set pride aside. Ellen's heart raced. He's really here. He really came back. Aidan stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking, each step measured and deliberate. I was wrong to speak as I did, he continued. I let fear of failure, duty, and my own pride make me cruel. But I cannot leave. Not now. Not after everything we've shared. Ellen swallowed hard, emotion choking him. I didn't know if you would ever care again, or if I should even trust you. You can, Aidan said, softer now, almost pleading. I am not perfect. I fail. I am afraid. But I will not fail you tonight. I will not walk away again. The boy's hands trembled. He wanted to run, to throw himself into Aidan's embrace, but years of fear and abandonment held him back. He took a deep breath and for the first time allowed himself to fully speak the truth of his heart. I forgive you, and I want you here. I need you here. Aidan's eyes glimmered, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and unspoken pain. Then I stay. I will stay, as long as you need me. The tension that had hung between them like a heavy curtain finally lifted. The night air was cool, but warmth spread between them. They didn't speak immediately, simply standing there, hearts pounding, aware of the gravity of the choice they had made, vulnerability over pride, connection over avoidance. Ellen's small hand reached out, brushing against Aidan's. The gesture was simple, yet loaded with meaning, trust, forgiveness, and the willingness to let someone in. Aidan allowed the boy's hand to rest in his, a silent promise that he would no longer retreat. We face everything together, he said quietly, a vow and a reassurance both. Ellen nodded, feeling the heavy weight in his chest ease slightly. Together, he echoed. The moonlight glimmered off the ridge, illuminating the two figures as they stood side by side. The choice had been made. The bond, once broken, began to mend. But both knew the journey was not over. Challenges still waited beyond the ridge, beyond the cottage, and beyond the walls of their hearts. That night, as Ellen returned to his mother's side and Aidan remained nearby, they both reflected on the choice they had made. Ellen realized that trust was a risk, but it was worth taking when the heart demanded it. Aidan recognized that vulnerability was not weakness, but the path to connection and redemption he had long avoided. The storm had passed, the misunderstanding had been confronted, and the choice had been made. The path forward was uncertain, but for the first time, both felt the fragile certainty of hope. Dawn broke gently over the ridge, soft light spilling across the cottage. The world felt renewed, washed clean by storms past, both the literal storm and the emotional ones that had battered Aidan and Ellen. Ellen sat by his mother, who stirred and opened her eyes, alert and strong for the first time in days. Relief washed over the boy as he realized she would live, not just survive, but truly recover. And standing beside him, a steady hand resting lightly on the back of a chair, was Aidan. He stayed, The thought sank into Ellen's chest, warm and steady. The same man who had left, who had been pulled away by pride and duty, had returned. It was reminiscent of the day Aidan first arrived, when the boy had begged him to save his mother. But now the roles were subtly reversed. Where once Aidan had been the rescuer, now they were united in mutual care. "Are you sure she's stable?" Aidan asked, crouching near the bedside. His tone was gentle, almost hesitant, but firm. "She's strong now," Ellen replied, voice steady. "And I want to thank you again for staying, for being here." Aidan's eyes softened. "I never left in my heart," he admitted. "I only had to learn how to show it." Ellen's small smile was radiant, the kind that lit a room more effectively than any fire. "Then, I guess we both learned something, huh?" Aidan nodded. "Yes, that courage isn't just about action. It's about trusting, forgiving, and letting someone in." The morning passed quietly but meaningfully. Together they tended to the cottage, checking the mother's temperature, preparing herbal mixtures, and laughing softly over small mishaps. Aidan accidentally spilled some tea on the floor, and Ellen giggled uncontrollably. "Careful," Ellen teased. "Your Majesty, a king cannot spill tea." Aidan chuckled, a full human laugh unburdened by pride. "Perhaps I am not suited for royalty after all." Ellen shook his head, still laughing. "No, you're the best king, and the best helper in the kitchen, too." Their laughter was light but heartfelt, a shared moment of normalcy after chaos and fear. The bond formed in Act 6 had survived the fracture of Act 7, and now it glowed stronger than before. Ellen's mother stirred again, voice gentle but knowing. "Ellen, Aidan, thank you for staying with me. Thank you both for caring so much. I can feel it, the strength, the love. It surrounds this room." The boy leaned against his mother, eyes glistening. We fought for you, Mama, and we'll keep fighting together." Aidan placed a hand on Ellen's shoulder. "We will," he echoed. The promise was quiet but unbreakable. It was no longer a king's duty alone, nor a boy's desperation. It was a partnership forged in fear, vulnerability, and trust. Later, as they stepped outside, the ridge bathed in the first warm rays of sunlight, the world felt infinite yet safe. Birds chirped above, the valley stretched endlessly below, and the soft wind carried the scent of wildflowers. The same ridge where Aidan had first received the boy's plea. Ellen looked at him, eyes wide with quiet amazement. "You came back," he said softly. "After everything, you came back. I promised myself I would not fail again," Aidan replied. "And I will not fail you, Ellen. Not now, not ever." The boy reached up and took Aidan's hand, a small gesture yet full of meaning. Trust, hope, forgiveness, and love passed silently between them. Aidan gave a rare, genuine smile. "I am learning, maybe even a king can love without fear." Ellen's laughter, pure and relieved, echoed across the ridge. "And maybe even a boy can help a king learn how." The morning sun caught the ridge in gold, the same ridge that had witnessed despair, fear, and the begging of a desperate child. Now it bore witness to healing, understanding, and the quiet triumph of human connection. The boy's small hand in the king's large one, the mother's steady gaze, the warmth of a cottage filled with laughter and sunlight. These were the images of victory, of reconciliation, and of love found at last. Even the storm clouds that lingered on the horizon seemed less threatening now. Life had tested them, tested courage, pride, and trust. But in the end, all had chosen connection, all had chosen care. Aidan, he had faced his own pride, regret, and fear. He learned that vulnerability was not weakness, and that trust and connection were the highest form of courage. He remained the Alpha King, but one transformed by compassion and genuine emotional bonds. Ellen, he had confronted his fear, guilt, and heartbreak. He learned that forgiveness and courage often go hand in hand, and that trusting others, however risky, can heal the deepest wounds. The theme, love at last. Unexpected love had arrived, not only in the bond between king and boy, but also in the gentle, enduring care of family and the warmth of trust earned and returned. As they all stepped onto the ridge, the morning light catching Aiden's strong features and Elend's bright eyes, Aiden repeated quietly the phrase he had whispered the first day he came. No one should watch someone they love fade away helplessly. But now, the words held a new weight. They were no longer a promise of duty alone, but a pledge of care, protection, and love freely given. Elend squeezed his hand. I know, and now we face everything together. Aiden nodded, the tension finally gone. Together, he repeated, and for the first time in years, he felt not just like a king, but like a human capable of love, hope, and connection. Have you ever found unexpected love or connection in the most unlikely place? Comment below and share a story where courage, forgiveness, or care transformed your life.